So Jim Taylor, Nanaimo. I just wanted to address the 5-year financial plan that undoubtedly is going to be adopted in a few moments. I just want to make the point that you're not adopting just a 2.5% tax increase. But the actual increases that Nanaimo taxpayers have to look forward to over the next 5 years is well beyond the 2.5% number, which is the one that I expect is going to make headlines in the next few days. In fact, over the next 5 years, the city tax revenue will increase by 16.4%, which is 4.1% a year. The RDN tax increase will be 37%, which works out to 9.25% a year. Water fees will increase by 37.5%. That's 7.5% a year. Sewer fees will increase by 25%. And if we keep our nose clean with MMBC, I believe our recycling is going to drop by 12% during that same time period. The combined increase in city taxes, RDN taxes, and the city fees, as far as I'm concerned, fees are just taxes by a different name, will equal 18.8% over the cycle, which is an average of 4.7% a year. The combined revenue being produced or collected by the city and the regional district in 2014 is $143,289,000. By 2018, that will have increased to $170,317,000, which represents an 18.8% increase. That's nearly 5% a year. It comes in at about 4.7%. This presumes that the funding for the police, which has been removed from this year, does not come back into the current budget if the police decide that, yeah, they really needed that funding for the extra officers. Now, how we determine affordability and sustainability, sort of overworked buzzwords as far as I'm concerned. The form of divination that's used to determine affordability and sustainability is a total mystery. I've not seen any kind of a study or a survey, nor do I know what methodology is being used to determine what percentage of a fee increase is actually going to be sustainable and affordable by the community. Since 2008, up until this current budget, the total city taxes and fees, and this does not include the RDN, have increased from $99,156,000 to a staggering $149,732,000. That's an increase of $50 million since 2008. That's 51% over the period. That's 5.6% a year. The city's own survey that was conducted by Ipsos Reid a couple of years ago, which is often referred to as a measure of taxpayer satisfaction, also indicated that there was some serious taxpayer fatigue, with about 50% of the respondents saying that, yes, they had enough taxes. They would accept a reduction in their services if it meant their taxes could actually be rolled backwards. Holding the line on taxes without jeopardizing public safety can be done. Now, I attended all of these budget review meetings that have been going on since the last 5 or 6 months, and I've got a stack of dead trees on my desk that can prove I was there. While the process was different than years past, it was more costly, it was also more time-consuming than the way we've done this budget process in the past. The net results seem to be exactly the same as what we've experienced in the past. Through much hard work, Council managed to wrestle the increase down from the first advertised 4% increase down to 2.5%. Most of this was accomplished by kicking the cost of increased policing down the road, with the understanding that it could be brought back in if it was actually deemed to be necessary. After hours and hours of line-by-line assessment of the city's different cost centers, which incidentally ignored staffing levels and wages, City Council is able to represent that they reduced the budget increase by a whopping 1.5%. The 1.5% reduction was the product of weekly meetings which go back to last October until just a few weeks ago. An easier way of reducing this budget would be to have simply applied the $4 million of overtaxation that was collected in the year 2013 to the current increases, and that would have eliminated this year's increase completely. It would also eliminate next year's increase completely. Add to that the decision to not spend $1 million repainting the kiddies pool at Beban and Nanaimo Aquatic Center, and not spend another $250,000 to replace a perfectly good working hot tub at Beban, and you found another 1.25% tax reduction. The overtaxation, which is the amount of surplus taxes was collected last year, and the money that's been earmarked for the pools and a hot tub are the equivalent of a 5.8% tax increase, which exceeds the budgeted tax increase for this year and next year combined. Now, I understand the need for socking away these surplus taxes into slush funds someplace, because we never know, we might need another shiny new office. Another opportunity to save the weary taxpayers some money would be by not spending nearly $100,000 on 3 consultants to tell council and staff what they should have been able to figure out quite well with yourselves by just applying the current community charter and using Robert's Rules of Order. Whether or not these expenses, now this whole budget review process this year has been quite expensive, this $100,000 to come up with new rules of governance, whether or not those are wise expenditures now, could be argued that this is, in the last year of a council's term, that money couldn't have been better spent if it was saved and put into the first year of a council's term. So last year, staff presented, whether or not this budget you're going to pass tonight is actually what we're going to really experience going forward, is another question. Last year, staff presented a 5-year draft, which indicated that it was a $175 million budget. And that turned out to have increased to $198 million by the time it was adopted in May. And that seems to have been a fact that was missed by most council watchers, myself included. And then I understand now that by the end of December of last year, that had to be amended to $208 million. So we started off with a draft at 175 that gets approved at 198 in May, and finally blossoms to 208 by the end of the year, which is quite a spread. So whether or not the plan that you're going to pass tonight is what we are actually going to experience by the end of the year, we'll have to wait and see. So if this council really wanted to hold the line on taxes, it's as simple as returning the $4 million in taxation from last year and not repainting the pools at Beban and Knack. It's unfortunate that this council didn't have that presented to them as an option over this 5 or 6 months. You went through all this whole process with line by line, and then after you labored through all of that, you discovered that you had $4 million kicking around from last year that you could have used this year. The fact that there's also no consideration being given to the impact that staff wages and increases could have in the next 5 years kind of brings to question whether or not there's some deficiencies in how this council has approached this budget. If you're not even addressing council or the level of staffing and the wages that are involved over the next 5 years. Well, you consider that in 2008, the total being paid to the over $75,000 a year club at City Hall amounted to $10.8 million. By 2012, that amount had increased to $18.8 million. That's nearly a 74% tax or 74% increase in that wage category. And when the cost of wages is not even part of the budget review process, you really have to wonder if anyone is taking the whole process really seriously. Taxes do not have to go up this year or next year or even the year after unless this council wants them to. Thank you.
I see no questions. Thank you.